Cool. So I'm here with Adam Mountford, who works on Test Match Special, which I'm extremely jealous. And I just collared him before he was about to go on a panel to find out what TMS are doing online. So Adam, what are TMS doing online?
Well, I think it's really important. I mean, obviously, Test Match Special on 5 Live Sports Extra, Radio 4 Long Wave is a radio programme, but we think these days, particularly for a series like the Ashes in Australia, it's a bit more than that. People follow it in so many different ways, particularly because, of course, you're listening through the night and you're not necessarily hearing every word. You want to follow what's happening online, you want to follow what's happening on Twitter. And we found, particularly in this recent Ashes series, that social media has been really important to us, and we've really embraced it as much as possible, particularly having someone like Jonathan Agnew, who just loves Twitter. I mean, he's gone from a couple of years ago when we first started using Twitter to saying, I understand you're Twittering, is that bird watching, to a situation now where he's got 80,000 followers as part of his Twitter account. He's a regular communicator with his Twitter army, I think, as he calls it sometimes.
Twitter army, nice.
Absolutely, and you know, he brings that to the programme, which is what's important to me, that it's not just something that completely exists online, it also adds things to the programme as well. I suppose ultimately it's nice that when the microphones switch off, you could still experience the joy of Test Match Special through Twitter and through online. And that's part of the appeal.
What I noticed this year was you did a couple of special TMS podcasts where you actually had the American woman who has the Twitter name at the Ashes.
Yes, yeah.
Who managed to get herself flown out to Melbourne. Was it Melbourne or Sydney?
To Sydney. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? That, I mean, for me, the fact that you have, as I say, a real direct link with people you may not come across through Twitter. And we've had a couple of examples. Lily Allen, of course, came on Test Match Special at the Ashes in 2009, and that link was made completely through Twitter. She was twittering the fact that she got into cricket. I want to be a cricket commentator. Jonathan Agnew, who, to be honest with you, had never heard of her. But the rest of us, obviously, were excited by this. They got in contact through Twitter, and suddenly she appears at the Oval as a guest. And then, as you say, at the Ashes, there's an amazing story. 22-year-old Ashley Korekes from Massachusetts, America. She's happily tweeting life story about knitting and looking after children. Happens to have this name because her boyfriend gives it to her at the Ashes. Aggers says to his 80,000 followers, why don't you send her a cricket question? And lo and behold, a few months later, she's sitting there at the SCG saying, oh, I've been learning about the rules of cricket from someone called Steve Waugh. And it's just an amazing story. And you know, and the fact that we were able to bring that on Test Match Special through Twitter, I think you're right, it shows it, and obviously podcasting it later.
Is that podcast still up online to download?
I think so, yeah. I think it should still be there.
It's sort of in terms, obviously, Aggers has got 80,000. I find it's quite funny that you've got essentially people who might be classed as fuddy-duddies covering cricket, who are really seem to have engaged with social media in a way that, say, my mum and her generation haven't.
It's funny, I think because cricket, to be honest with you, it's probably not so much like cricket does attract quite a technical audience because the nature of the game is a bit complicated at times, and often you do get people who are quite technical and actually enjoy the advances, and they're the first to buy the iPads, they're the first to be twittering, etc. So you do get an element of that, but it is true. And I won't tell you that every single person gets technology and gets Twitter. I mean, it's a true story. Christopher Martin Jenkins went to pick up a mobile phone in the commentary box and actually picked up a television remote control. That did happen. And he's got little idea. But you're right, Jonathan Agnew loves it. Michael Vaughan, as part of the team, loves it. Simon Hughes loves it. You've got these sort of people. And for me as a producer, that's a gift. You've got these people who are really into it. Yeah. And I think it does show that, you know, we can be at the forefront, hopefully, of thinking as well as bringing the game of cricket alive.
How big, I mean, I'm a devoted fan of TMS and now the podcast, especially when I can't hear it on Radio 4. How big an audience are you now getting through the podcast and through the streaming? Is it comparable? How does it rate with the broadcast?
I mean, actually, it's interesting. You should get figures. You get more figures for what you do on podcast and online than you do actually on the radio because of the nature of radar figures, how you measure radio listening. You don't really know. You get a rough idea. It's interesting. The last set of radar figures suggested that we had the record ever audience for Radio 5 and 5 Live Sports Extra, and the feeling is that must be something to do with the cricket.
Anything to do with winning the Ashes?
You think so? Yeah. But certainly, interestingly, the podcast, the Test Match Special podcast, was #1 on iTunes downloads, both in England and in Australia, which was remarkable considering the nature of the series. Okay. And there was something like 4 or 5 million people on the last day of the Ashes looking online, listening. People were listening on the iPlayer throughout the day, downloading the highlights, downloading the podcast. So yeah, the figures are huge, and it gives you the idea what the radio figures must be like. But together, when I look at it now, it's not just the live commentary; it's the whole package. You get the live commentary, but you get everything else added on as well, and that makes the whole experience, hopefully for the listener, really real fun, and also brings a bit of extra value to what we're doing.
So you've got probably, if you're a cricket fan and you like a bit of travelling. Probably one of the best jobs in the world. How did you end up doing this?
Well, I got involved in, I suppose, to be honest with you, I remember meeting Peter Baxter, who was the producer before me, who did it for 34 years. And I met him at Lord's. I was working in local radio, covering Warwickshire cricket. I met him at Lord's. I remember turning to him thinking, what a job you've got, going around the world covering England at cricket. You know, what a dream job that is. And fortunately, I worked in local radio, worked in university radio, came down to London to work at the BBC in 1998, did a bit of work in golf. I was the golf producer for a little while, but cricket was always my first love. I was obsessed since I was 9, the 1981 Ashes series. And in 2002-03, I had the chance to get involved in cricket. My first working day in the job was at the MCG, doing the Boxing Day Test match. A dream. And
that's not a bad first day at the office.
It's not bad. People say, you know, is it a dream job? I say, well, look, I get to sit in a commentary box, watching cricket, listening to the programme I've loved, having a constant supply of cakes. I mean, is that a bad job?
I think the only downside might be the waistline, but that sounds awesome.
Exactly. I do have to work with Geoffrey Boycott. That's what you need to remember. So there are every cloud, as they say.
Brilliant. Adam, thank you very much.
No problem at all. Thank you.
Cheers.